that our economy continues to be guided by external forces like international oil markets and World Bank indicates that all is not well with our country economically. The World Bank has called on the federal government to remove fuel subsidy, reduce its indebtedness to the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, and increase tax on certain items like alcohol as a way of boosting the economy. In its November 2021 Nigeria Development Update, the World Bank raised its 2021 and 2022 economic growth forecasts for Nigeria to 2.7 and 2.8%. The Global Bank said economic growth in Nigeria is being threatened by microeconomic challenges like dollar shortage, petrol subsidy, and the fiscal deficit financing by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Babajide, when we want to start with this now, and we look at the vexed issue of fuel subsidy, it has been there for years, but successive administration, we've been dilly-dallying over it, and we've refused to deregulate the downstream sector fully, and we have refused to remove the control of government from they always have to subsidize how much they get the landing cost, and I was told that in this West Africa sub-region is about the cheapest.
Yes.
And that is really hurting us.
It is. For me, my concern is even the corruption that goes with this subsidy thing. Cases are in court, or people claim that just like they brought PMS into our country, they didn't bring Jack, and the cases are in court. I think there was even one of them was jailed sometime, maybe early last year or something. So subsidy has helped many people to fatten their pockets.
Made them billionaires.
You know, so it's not a strange thing to have subsidy. Many countries of the world subsidize products, produce and all that, you know, to make life more meaningful for their people. But our own has been an opportunity for people to feather their nests, to make themselves richer at the expense of the state. And look at a country like Nigeria. We can hardly pay our bills. There are some things that many of us didn't know were happening, that we have now seen clearly were actually happening. For example, the Minister of Finance said that they had to borrow money to pay salaries. I didn't know that it was that bad. When I saw the story, I said, what's going on? You mean we were borrowing money from the CBN to pay salaries? And that's what the World Bank is complaining about, that look, that we continue to take faced with widening budget deficit. Policy makers have increasingly turned to costly CBN overdrafts that are not properly integrated into the fiscal accounts. We should be able to eat what we kill. We must generate enough revenue. The revenue that we generate will enable us to pay our bills. We can't keep taking loans like a drunken sailor. We can't continue along that path, because when you continue to take loans, it also means that the quantum of money that you set aside for debt servicing will be so huge that you will not be able to focus on critical sectors and use that money to intervene in critical sectors. That is the point. People who encourage taking loans here and there, they don't know that every action has consequences. The more loan you take, the more money you spend on debt servicing. And all of these loans are denominated in foreign currency. So we just have to find a way. And if we can save 1.8 trillion every year from scrapping subsidy, this money, there's a lot that this money can do.
Exactly.
For example, look at the governors first. The governors are in support of removal of subsidy because they know that will be about 200 billion added to the distributable revenue from FAC. that they all share at the end of every month. So that's more money for them. There are months that we've had some bad months in this country that states shared less than $400 billion. I've seen some months like that, especially when we were in recession. Just about 300 plus was what all of them shared. Now,
so we will leave the table longer.
Yes, now that they will be entitled to about 200 billion extra, this will go a long way. We just have to tell ourselves that how much longer. The president, the minister of finance, said, this thing is not sustainable. I agree that it's not sustainable, but before we decide to remove subsidy, I think that they need to engage with labor to look at palliative measures that can happen, maybe buying of buses like this, the ones we have in Lagos. What do they call them? BRT buses. Yeah. At least that will help reduce the pressure on commuters. Because if we leave it simply to this NURTW people, the kind of money they will ask for from people just to move from point A to point B will be too huge. But if government floods the states with commuter buses, it can help bring down the
what's your summary of this?
Yes, like every other person who understands what is going on, nobody is going to say that subsidy should remain. A subsidy should be sustained. It does not make sense. Like he said, 1.8 trillion, what it can do, how it can fund critical infrastructure. But my worry, as I was coming, I was thinking about it. My worry, I have two worries. I just hope that we are getting the timing right. Although you can also say, when are we going to have the best time to do it? Which is why
there's no best time.
There's no best time because you keep postponing the problem is maybe certain things we should have put in place, but it's not too late. He talked about buses. By now, we should have had, in a place like Lagos, we should have had viable alternative means of transportation. We should have had better roads. For example, I know that, we talk about roads. We always think of federal government. How many federal government roads do we have? The federal government roads are just roads linking states. Most of the roads in this country are owned by state governments and local governments. And people spend more time on these roads. For example, when I say bring more buses, if you increase vehicular density on roads, and then you cause probably more traffic hold up. But again, that is what we have to do. Bring in roads. Then again, at this time, we should also be thinking of the power sector. Because if you remove subsidy, of course, we know that this subsidy is benefiting the rich. In fact, most people don't even use cars, but they travel. They use commercial buses. And but the place you were spending probably 100 naira to get to, and they tell you it's 500 naira now because of price, the rise in the price of PMS per liter. Of course, you know that you have become poorer. Services, goods, movement of goods and services will cost more. That is why there should be palliatives. Now, my second worry.
Let me just hold you on there. I have joining us via Zoom for more discussion on this is economist Muda Yusuf. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Yes, Muda, can you please tell us about the effects the removal of subsidy is going to be, because we've been dilly-dallying, successive administration, they've told us, they've enlightened Nigerians that look, it's not in our own good that this subsidy, government should continue subsidizing PMS for us. We want to know finally if they are going to go about it next year, that what will be those effects?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, a number of effects. But first, let me situate it within the context of the World Bank report that Jide alluded to. The World Bank was raising issues about very, very important reforms that needs to take place. These things are not new. Sometimes I even prefer that the government responds more to issues raised internally than issues raised by the IMF or the World Bank. Because there is this general perception that anything that comes from either the IMF or the World Bank is anti-people, is poisonous, is toxic, and that kind of thing. And that can create a whole lot of issues for this kind of conversation. But having said that, I think the critical issues that were raised in terms of reforms were reforms around the foreign exchange policy, which has been creating a whole lot of issues for investors, whether domestic or foreign. Reforms around what was described as fiscal risks, that the risk to the fiscal environment, and the subsidy thing was highlighted as a major fiscal risk for government. Coming to the subsidy thing, we see it has become an emotive issue. It has become an issue that not many people want to even listen to the facts. There are so much sentiments, there are so much emotions that are being whipped here and there. That is almost, overshadowing or, obscuring the realities or the real issues in the discussion. Now, this subsidy, we have been on it for quite a while. And one of the major challenges that we have had with subsidy is that it has blocked investment into the petroleum downstream sector. And it has blocked investment because you cannot have a sector where it is the government that will be dictating the price of your product. And that is what has happened over the last 2 decades. And that is why we are stuck with government-owned refineries. And you know what it is when you have such an important enterprise being managed by bureaucrats and being managed by politicians. That is what has put us in this mess. Because the situation wouldn't have been as bad as this if we are refining our own petroleum products domestically. And we have the capacity to do that if only we have the right policy environment. So the fact that we have this subsidy regime, highly regulated situation, has prevented investors from coming to the sector. Those who were there before, some of them have exited because it is just not sustainable. So I think one major benefit that this will bring is more private investment into the petroleum downstream. And if you have more private investment, we scale up the domestic refining capacity. Look at what private investors are doing in telecoms. Imagine the government had insisted that all of us should still be stuck with NITEL. What are you going to be saying today? Look at the amount of jobs that has been created. Look at the value they have brought into the economy. Look at the revenue that have been that they are paying in form of taxes and all of that. So the thing we expect to see with this is a growth in private investment in the petroleum downstream sector. Of course, there's also the effect on our foreign reserves. Now we are being told that we are consuming 60 million liters of PMS per day. You can see how humongous that is. And all of these things are God-paying foreign exchange. We are struggling with the exchange rate and all, but the biggest import bill we have today is the importation of petroleum products because all the refineries have collapsed. And this is putting a lot of pressure on our reserves. It's making it difficult for the central bank to fund the foreign exchange market. That is also part of the issues that we are having. Then there is the revenue effect. We are spending anywhere between 1.5 to 2 trillion. In fact, some people are estimating that by the end of the year, we may be talking about 3 trillion. In an economy where we are struggling to fund education, in an economy where we are struggling to fund our health services, in an economy where we are struggling to fund our roads, to fund even security agencies. We just have some conversation around security. Funding security is also an issue, and all of this has to do with funding. So the point I'm saying here is about what exactly should be our priorities. So when I see people who are anti-subsidy forces, like the labor union, I wonder whether they are thinking about the sustainability of this economy or the sustainability of this country as a country, rather than riding on the wave of popularity, popular opinion, and all of that. And leadership is not a popularity contest. So I'm hoping that the labor leaders and some civil society we also see reason with government. We can have discussions as to how to manage the savings, how to manage finances. But we should not continue to encourage or perpetuate a regime that has become a platform for corruption, a platform for distortions, a platform that is making it difficult for private capital to come into the sector. And it's not a very important sector. If the policies were right, Nigeria should be the one supply almost half of Africa petroleum products, not crude, refined petroleum products. Imagine the impact that will have on jobs, on foreign exchange, on foreign reserves, and on the growth of the economy. So these are some of the things that we need. Of course, employment. Then we have talked about smuggling. In many of the West African countries now, petrol is selling for over 400 naira per liter equivalent. Now we are selling at 165. So it's a no-brainer that the bulk of all of these things will be going to all of these countries. We are the one feeding them with PMS. That is why some neighboring communities and states, they are already running they are having a crisis of fuel now, because all the fuel that goes to those states are going to the neighboring countries, because the incentive to do that is so high. But I must admit that there are social implications in terms of the likely inflationary effect that we have. There are also political implications. I'm talking about the political cost of taking this decision.
The World Bank also wants us to increase taxes on luxury items, cigarettes, alcohol, and what it called sugary drinks. We know that we have issues with revenue. Do you think fresh taxes are the way to go?
No, I don't think so. What the World Bank was talking about was about imposing excise tax, excise duty. You impose excise duty on things that are produced domestically. And this time they are talking about carbonated drinks. I don't think it's a good thing to do at this time. Because the manufacturing sector, they are going through a lot already. And already we have excise duty on cigarettes, on some luxury items, on alcohol. We already have excise duty on that. Now the whole idea now is to move it to what we call soft drinks. I don't think that should happen now, because it will be too much.
Mr. Yusuf, let me just pause you there. We have to take this breather. When we come back, we'll discuss more. So before we went on break, you were explaining something, Mr. Yusuf.
Yes, I was talking about the issue of excise duty that is being proposed by the World Bank. Even before now, the finance minister had hinted that they are going to impose excise duty on carbonated drinks. For me, I don't think that is a good thing to do, given the fact that excise duty is a tax imposed on things that are produced domestically. So the point I was making is that the manufacturing sector in this economy are going through a lot already. This is not a time to impose additional burden on them. They have enough problems with foreign exchange. They have enough issues at the ports. They have enough problems with transportation and logistics. They have enough problems with even interest rate and the rest of them. So this is not the time to now impose additional tax on anything that is manufacturing. Already, maybe for health reasons, there's already excise duty on cigarettes, on alcoholic drinks, on spirits and all of that. Let's keep it at that. Because by the time we impose additional tax on all these soft drinks, it will not only stop at the manufacturers. All the SMEs, micro enterprises, all these people that sell soft drinks on the streets, the prices will go up. And what margin are they making? It will further erode the margin, and it will affect a whole lot of them, because it's a very wide chain of distribution and marketing. All of them will be affected. So I think it is better to stick with all these major reforms and leave the issue of excise duty alone. Of course, just as I said, there will be some social effects. Prices are likely to increase. The government is already talking about 5,000 naira palliatives, and so we can have conversations around that. There are already discussions as to the credibility of the data, how inclusive it is, how credible. There can be discussions around that. But the fundamental issue of the reform is something that we need to quickly deal with, and deal with honestly, rather than grandstanding or trying to be popular or trying to paint the government in a bad light. This is not sustainable. When we run an economy, you don't run an economy only for today. We also think of future generation. What are we going to show to future generation that we have done with our oil money? There is no infrastructure. The hospitals are nothing to, Yes.
I want to ask you, what do you feel, what do you make of the proposed 5,000 naira to be given to 40 million Nigerians as a kind of palliative?
First of all, it's a transitional thing. It's something to help the government to transition from the current situation to the next. And the whole idea is to give something that will have immediate impact. Of course, I've had argument around it's better to do rules, and that may not give immediate impact to somebody who is hungry or somebody that is poor. So if you have that, and again, if you have a credible data, because again, it's about the quality of the database that will be used. It is not a bad idea to give a cash transfer to those the vulnerable segments of the society, but there has to be engagement. Government has to engage with labor, they have to engage with civil society on the modalities and strategies to deliver this, and we can even go beyond that. We can look at our trade policy. What are the areas in which you can reduce some tariffs, so that some of these essential things that the common people use, you can scrap tariff from them, so their prices can go down. Yeah. Some of these companies that produce staple foods, we can engage them. What can we do for you to bring down the cost of some of these staple foods? These are things that can be done so that the poor people will not feel the pain too much. So these are the things. I only hope that government will have the political will to do this. Because this is close.
Thank you so much for your intervention.
Close to the election.
Thank you so much for your intervention, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you so much for joining us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Wow, today.
Yeah.
Very comprehensive.
Yes, and one final thing he said was that he hoped that government will have the political will, because elections are coming. Nobody wants to walk into a climate of hate with the elections just around the corner. There was a friend of mine who is an APC supporter who was saying that he would prefer the incoming administration to remove subsidy. I said it's clear why you are saying this, because you think that if the government goes ahead, it may not be able to win the next election because people will be angry and all that. But you think that the next government, of course, in your view, that next government should still be an APC-led government. So if the APC government, new government does it, is the same fear that you are expressing that will reign at that time. So when there's a big decision to take, somebody must just find the courage to take that big decision.
The country will be going down.
Yes. They will have borrowing money from CBN to pay salaries. I mean, if it wasn't the finance minister that said it, I would not have believed that that happened. Some people don't know.
Even allege that still we're printing money.
Yes. It's the manner he said it that got people worried. Otherwise, even in so-called Senate climbs, they print money. But our people get emotional about everything. You know, so you cannot keep postponing this, keep hoping that this goes. It will not go away. You will not find the money that you need to fix this, to fix that. When you are returning 200 billion every month.
Exactly.
A lot of
just stabilize
the countries around us is our fuel that they are using. Just as you said, up to Cameroon. If you Google it, there was a big story that I read about massive smuggling of Nigerian petrol from Adamawa and some states of the northeast.
Because it's very lucrative.
Yes, it's much cheaper
it's
here
very cheap,
than in their country. So they can kill to bring in Nigerian petrol into Cameroon. So this is the thing. We are subsidizing smuggling and subsidizing the fat cats.
However, we must carry labor along, because labor, if I want to be the devil's advocate, labor is thinking about the immediate suffering that it can be or that can happen as a result of
National Association of Nigerian Students.
Exactly, those people should be carried along, because it will not be the interest of our economy if they ground this country with strike. You know, so they must be carried along before this is done. Yes.
Okay.